which I think leads very nicely into one of the threads around vendors. They have a role. Clearly, we need new technology. We need new products. It has to keep pace. But how do individual companies and organizations select the right vendor products, determine when new is a benefit as opposed to reusing what they've got, perhaps reconfiguring? What should you do to actually work through vendor claims and identify the benefits that you can actually get from that technology?
Andrew?
Suppose it's...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you go. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think it comes back to a kind of post that we did last week and what it talks about, and it links to another question I think, Steve, we've got later on in the session, but it really links back to the value you're seeing from that device or technology that sits in your infrastructure. So essentially, if you look at how MSPs, operators all play in that space, they're looking at that piece of technology as how much value does it create for the business operation. So what is it doing? Why is it doing it? And am I getting value? Because at every piece of new equipment that you install, there's going to be cost, disruption, and resource associated to it. So we're not saying that new isn't valid, but saying new is valid when the value of that new piece of equipment outweighs the value and the business, so the value creation and the business operational need from that existing piece of equipment. Yeah, so it should be looking at your estate going, what is it doing? Why is it doing it? And how much value am I getting from it? And then if I replaced it, am I going to get more value? Yes or no?
Anything to add, Andy?
No, you just said what I was going to say, but in a far more eloquent way.
I'm sure Stephen's got lots to add on this one.
I'll add one other twist on that as well, because I think one of the things that we forget quite often when we're working in the IT space, and I'll quote somebody we all know and love, our favorite rocket man, Elon Musk. The best part is no part. I think businesses forget that in IT all the time. They look at something and go, oh, that's old. That's gotten really difficult to support. That's gotten really expensive to maintain. I need to replace it. But do you? Could you simply retire it? That whole divesting of technology is, again, one of the really great ways for organizations to achieve heightened security, because simpler is easier to secure. Simpler is easier to monitor. Less is easier to manage the attack surface on. So the vendors, obviously, they don't want to talk about that conversation, right? You're never going to get your vendor rock up and go, I think what you really should do is just unplug it all. Right? Their answer is always, of course, you need to replace it. It's very important. But is it? And to Andrew's point, that's where that value conversation comes in, because you'll find, and I remember doing some consulting for one of our top 3 finance organizations. I won't name so I don't embarrass them. And they had gone through quite a lot of mergers and acquisitions over the years, which resulted in them having over 2,500 individual IT systems. And I kind of cringed and went, oh my, really? Why haven't you turned some of them off? And they were like, well, they're all in use. And it was like, by 5 people out of your whole company, just shut it off and tell them to use paper. Like, the operational risk to your organization of maintaining that legacy technology for those 5 people does not deliver to your bottom line. And it's a huge security risk, because can you monitor all of that stuff? Can you patch it all? Can you maintain it all? Of course not. There's going to be areas of the infrastructure that are going to slip because they're not front and center, because they are niche cases. Well, guess what? The hackers will find them. They'll find those weak spots. And now they're in. And then you're back to that previous problem of segregation and zero trust. So there's a lot of prevention that can be done, to Andrew's point, of looking at value very critically, right down to the, well, do you need it at all? Not just will new do better, but, well, maybe the answer is none.
I think one of the things about kind of think back to my history, more in the operator space, and and connectivity. We'd go and have lots of conversations with customers about improving effectiveness, operational efficiency of their infrastructure, what they were doing. And they said, well, do you know what? The problem I've got is I don't have budget for it. And you go, oh, okay, well, where's your budget? Well, we're coming up to 3 years and I've got to do a network refresh. And you're like, for why? Your piece of your network is still only 3 years old, right? Is it delivering the capability? Well, yeah, but that's in the budget and it's assigned to network refresh. And we know that it comes up every 3 to 5 years. And so we've got it assigned. And you're kind of like, why are you doing that? Is that creating that value that you need? Actually, if you invested that budget and resource into doing something that actually improve your operation efficiency, you'd get far better return from your IT. And that's, if you look at all what's going on across all Gartner, etc., they're all talking about how does IT become a valued part of an organization. It's not just the guys that make IT work, it's about how do they deliver value for the organization that gives them a competitive edge, that gives them that effectiveness, that gives them that operational efficiency.
I think that's a really great example. And actually, so what I've looked at is over the years, it's like, the shift from physical servers to virtual machines to containers, as an example. That enables a different development experience. It enables lots of different kind of application architectures that aren't really reflected or suitable for support under that old model. But then what you particularly see is a lot of organizations that have kind of migrated their hosting, migrated their legacy applications with the same architecture and just moved into being virtualized and then kind of containerized. You go, but actually you haven't given yourself the broader transformation, the broad value around the speed of change, the granularity of release and change. You've not taken any of those enabling things. So what you've done is kind of break and devalue your existing control and operational model by introducing new things that those kind of controls and mechanisms can't work with, and introduce the need for new capability whilst you're not deriving the new increased value from them. So it's certainly something I think you get to a stage where you go, if you're replacing most of the parts on the car, you may as well replace all of it. And that's fundamentally back to kind of first principles, design principles, the architecture you're trying to achieve. If you've got all of these heritage legacy workloads and you're still having to do things with them, trying to take a modern deployment approach to something that fundamentally wasn't designed to operate in that model generally gives you greater complexity and cost overheads than just leaving it in the model that it was designed for.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great point, Adam. A lot of organizations, they'll take that sort of, oh, well, we want to be cloud first, and that becomes cloud everything. And you kind of go, yeah, but that bit over there would be much better served on a bit of tin in a data center because it likes it there. And moving it to the cloud, it's not going to give you any advantages, except you're going to go from an asset that you can sweat for 5-10 years to something that you're renting on a monthly basis. And you go, if you're not re-architecting, why? What you have works, just leave it there. And maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, what happens? Well, the technology dial has changed again. The landscape's different. The options we have are different. So you're going to have different choices that you can choose from. So a lot of times, again, organizations, they fail to realize the benefit in deferring choice, in deferring change decisions, and going, I don't see the value right now in doing X. Great, don't do it. Leave it the way it is. Monitor, secure it. As Andrew said, put the budget somewhere else. Don't spend money on that, because you know what? In 36 months' time, I don't know what I'm going to be able to offer you, but I know it's going to be something that's not been invented yet. In the infrastructure space, we always get these, really amusing conversations. And I remember being asked to consult the building of a new hospital over in Ireland. And their opening gambit when, the board of this hospital development project kind of set the scene. He said, and what we're doing here is we're designing an infrastructure for the next 15 years. And I went, really? By that notion, that last hospital you built in the 1970s was designed for iPads. And they kind of went, well, no, of course it wasn't. Right, because they weren't invented yet. Do you think my crystal ball is better than that guy's crystal ball? Because I can assure you, it's the same thing. I can't tell you what you're going to have in 15 years because it's not been invented yet. But I can tell you how to spend wisely today based on the choices of today. And again, new isn't always better. If the value's not there, leave it the way it is. Run it the way it's always been run until there is a better option.